Hi, how you doing? And welcome back to the video on the channel. What we have today is a wildcard video going into game week 14, and there's not too long to go before the World Cup. So if you are still hanging on to that wildcard, you really need to get thinking about using it if you're going to have the maximum impact for your team. So before we get started, any likes and subscribes on the channel greatly appreciated. We actually had 4 new subscribers last week, which has taken us up to 30 overall. So thank you so much for that. Does make a difference, especially when it's such a small channel trying to progress. So yeah, thank you very much. So we've got the teams to target, and we're going to start with Newcastle, and they have conceded the least goals in the whole Premier League with 9 at the moment. This is recorded on Sunday. Villa are second lowest scoring with 7, and Southampton are the fifth lowest scoring with 10. So if you're looking at getting someone like Trippier in, if you don't have him already, I would definitely say that is a must. And I would also say if you wanted to double up on the Newcastle defence by getting someone like Nick Pope in or another Newcastle defender, I think that's a great shout as well. So Man City and these fixtures, I don't think are ideal from a defensive standpoint. Leicester, Brentford, and Fulham are all averaging pretty much nearly 2 goals a game, but Leicester and Fulham still have a negative goal difference, and Brentford only have a +1. So the Man City attack is definitely on, for a change rather than any other game week, I guess. But something to consider about is maybe the triple up with Man City, and we'll get onto that in a little bit. So Palace defence looked a bit better before the Everton game, but they've still got good fixtures. We've already talked about Southampton being low scoring, and Nottingham Forest, they don't regularly bang the goals in. So I do think a Crystal Palace defender is still worth a shout for these final game weeks before the World Cup. Next, we've got Everton, and it looks good for a cheeky midfield. Someone like Gray or Iwobi for 3 weeks could be a great differential. They're playing teams that are conceding goals. So I think one of those cheaper midfielders that you might want to rotate in, I think is really worth the value. And finally, we've got Man United. 1 goal conceded in the last 3 games against all top six opposition. It shows great value for someone like Shaw or Dalot at that 4.5 to 4.7 price range. Teams to avoid. Now we're going to start with Leeds, and they're in a bit of turmoil at the moment, and those fixtures definitely don't help the situation. I just don't see why you would get in a Leeds player when teams like Everton, Palace, and Newcastle, who are probably similarly priced players, have better fixtures or in better form. Next, we've got Brentford. Now, other than Ivan Toney, who I would say is still worth a shout for getting in, especially for that Wolves and Nottingham Forest game, I don't really see it. I guess you could have a cheap defender if you really wanted to, but like we said with Leeds, there are just better defences out there at the moment, and they're kind of in a bit of a sticky patch in terms of form as well. Up next, we've got Wolves, and we need to kind of see what's happening with this new manager situation. There could potentially be a bounce back, but by the time that kind of takes hold, is it going to be too late? And maybe you're looking at targeting them after the World Cup. Fourth, we've got Southampton. Now, for me, all three of those fixtures just look tough. I know Palace just got beat away at Everton, but they're a different proposition at home. And same for Newcastle and Liverpool. I just think there is no need to get in Southampton players. I would definitely avoid them. Finally, we've got Aston Villa. Now, this is a team who could maybe have a bit of a new manager bounce soon, depending on when they get in the new manager. I think they have got quality players, but it is worth seeing. Again, have you got enough time to gel all of that and have that bounce against a team like Man United or a team like Brighton who have had good starts to the season? So we move on to the team, and there's a bit of a giveaway there already. Is we've got Martinez in defence. I couldn't afford on this wildcard to get in Dallow or Shaw, which sounds ridiculous because they're only point 0.1 or point 0.2 more. But if you can get them in, I would definitely get in Dallow and Shaw above Martinez. But I think away into that Man United defence is 100% needed, really, for the rest of this game weeks before the World Cup. We've still got Gaeta in goal. Although he conceded 3, he is a big point hauler. If he keeps a clean sheet, he usually gets bonus points as well. And rounding out the defence, we've got Trippier and Ben White. Arsenal's fixtures look pretty good before the World Cup as well. Moving on to the midfield, and we've got some big hitters in there, and there's no Man City defence, but we have got 2 double Man City midfielders in Bernardo and De Bruyne. For me, Bernardo Silva is super underrated. He does usually start. Sometimes it's in a more of a central midfield role than an attacking role, but he is someone whose passing really excels, especially when Man City have the ball, which is a lot of the time, and their fixtures are looking good. Still got Saka. I think he, as well as Bernardo, is probably one of the most underrated players in the Premier League, especially from a fantasy point of view. In terms of those consistent returns, we have Bruno Fernandes. Now that is maybe a bit of a sort of a risky pick, I guess. But I was looking through the potential midfielders, and there's not that many really that I would rate. And it's at the start of the sort of time of the season now where you're looking to start making some differential gains. Now, Bruno, he did look on it the last few games, and I do think he is someone that could turn it up. He's only about 2.8% owned. So you think about like a season ago, it's a year and a half ago when it was lockdown, he was like an absolute must in everybody's teams, and he's not turned into a bad player. I think Man United have just needed a bit of time to find themselves. But I do think that he's someone that could, as a 3 week, effort in terms of getting a player in, could get you some differential points there. And same with De Bruyne, although he's obviously more highly percentage owned, I think he is someone that is running into some good form. And to find these players who are making sort of a late push for the World Cup and to get in some form for the World Cup, I do think these are players you're worth monitoring. Now we move into the attack, and we've got triple Man City attack here because obviously we've got Haaland as well. Ivan Toney and Mitrovic round off the strikers. Now I do think that whilst their form is a little patchy, especially Ivan Toney, he has still got 3 goals in his last 3 games, I believe. He did blank in the previous game week, but Wolves at home is a fixture where you would fancy him to score and return. So on the bench, we've got a load of cheap players. This is a team where you could rotate in and out, but for 3 weeks, you're not going to have that much rotation. So I would say you do need to kind of, it's called dead ending your team. And what I mean by that is you don't need to look through the next past the next 3 game weeks after World Cup because you get another wild card there. But also, if you're wildcarding with 3 weeks to go, you're not going to have many more changes you want to make. Maybe you want to target someone like Mitrovic and Tony who have tough game weeks in game week 16. But other than that, your team is going to be pretty much settled. So you can afford to have a cheap bench. I could even afford to have an even cheaper bench here. You could maybe get rid of a, an Andreas or a Tarkowski for an even cheaper 4 million defender or midfielder and boost your squad elsewhere. I do think that is something that you do need to bear in mind is that you don't need as much cover on your bench if you're only wildcarding for 3 game weeks. And the final one is use it or lose it. If you're not going to use it now, you're kind of pushing it a little bit unless you wanted that sort of free hit esque 1 or 2 week wild card. But I don't really see what the need is to hold it any longer. If you've not used it yet, you need to use it now, or it's just going to get wasted. So yeah, that's my wildcard team. Let me know what you think. Maybe it helps you out. And like I said at the start, appreciate all the subscribers we had last week. Any more, for the small channel is just even more appreciated. So thank you very much for listening. Good luck with your wildcard if you're using it. I will see you in the next one.